Welcome to the Stars and Stripes Multifamily Apartment Investing Podcast, broadcasting from the three-country region of Switzerland, France, and Germany. Get ready to meet amazing industry rock stars and learn how they think, what they do, and what makes them successful. Now, here's your host and investor, Marcel T. Rutz.
Welcome, everybody. Today, we have very interesting guests. The Donis Brothers. They are full-time real estate investors focused in apartment syndication. So these are three real estate investors and brothers. We have Jeffrey, Kerwin, and Kenneth. They are the Donis Brothers. Are in their 20s. Wow, I wished I would have focused that early. And with Donis Investment Group, they are trying to help people meet their financial goals by investing in real estate. They have a 636 unit apartment portfolio. So I have now Jeffrey and Kerwin here. Hey guys, Welcome to the show.
Hey Marcel, thanks for having us. Thanks for having us.
Guys, where are you located right now?
Yeah, we're in Durham, North Carolina. Here in the United States.
Oh, okay. Is that also the place where you are focusing your investment?
Yeah, we do look here in North Carolina, but we currently don't own any apartments here. We do own some single family, but our main two other markets for multifamily are Florida and Georgia. But we hope to have some here in North Carolina soon. Yes.
Hey, interesting. Guys, I think you started with single family, right? What could you say about that?
Yeah, we actually got started with something called wholesaling.
What's wholesaling in your terms? Flipping a contract?
Correct. So we've always been big on marketing. So what we were doing was pretty much going direct to seller, and we were contacting these homeowners and getting a property under contract at a price where we could still assign the contract to an end buyer, typically a home flipper, someone that goes in and does the renovations, makes it look really nice, and then sells it for premium price. But what we were doing was acting as the middleman. So that's how we got started. And then we got into some creative financing. And by that, I just mean doing something called subject to. And then we did seller financing, which are just some creative strategies to acquire properties without necessarily having to pay it out of pocket in full.
Creating financing, anything you can share here?
Yeah. So creative financing, really, the first part of that was subject to. We were taking mortgages over without actually putting the title in our name. It's just like something that we joined a mentorship and we learned a lot about that. But that's how we got the first rental here in North Carolina. And then the second one was a simpler creative finance strategy, which is seller financing. So that is just really when the homeowner owns the property free and clear, so they don't have any debt, they don't have any mortgages on it, and then we would agree to a payment plan with them. So say it's they want $400 a month, and we know that we can rent it for, let's say, $800. We would be willing to take that, obviously, because it cash flows. So that's kind of how we structured the first one. Actually, it was $400 payment to the seller, and then we knew that we could rent it for $800, and we didn't necessarily have to put any down payment. We got a 0% interest rate from the seller, so she got her price, and we always like to say we get our terms.
Right. So is that A class, B, or C class?
Those were mainly like I would say C plus, but they weren't in the most desirable markets at the time. Now it's growing because North Carolina is just on fire right now. But when it comes to apartments, we typically look for B to C class assets in very desirable markets like North Carolina, Georgia, and then Florida.
Cool. You are still doing the single family or no more? You're just focusing on the multifamily, or how's that? Both?
Yeah, we're fully focused on apartments now. Multifamily, but we still own two rentals to this day, and those are the two that we're speaking on.
How long did you do that wholesaling?
Yeah, we did it for about 13 months. It wasn't necessarily something that we we did for too long, but we learned a lot while we were doing it. Yeah, and then that's when we decided to transition into apartments. So my brother Kenneth, he likes to tell a story about how he was listening to a podcast, and some guy was talking about wholesaling, and that the gentleman came from a low income background and didn't. I think he dropped out of high school or didn't go to college, and he just really spoke about how successful he was able to make himself, and he was very lucrative for him at wholesaling. So that's kind of what was our gateway drug into real estate, and we just started educating. We learned the importance of holding on to assets rather than just selling them. Or like flipping contracts essentially. So that's kind of why we decided to look for ways to actually hold these assets, and we were exposed to multifamily, and it just made more sense for us and align more with our long-term goals.
Just to build wealth, was that the motive?
Yeah, so we have a single mom. We grew up low income. She's from Guatemala, so we're first generation as well. So a big motivating factor for us is to retire her as soon as possible and help our family in Guatemala. So I would say that was the thing that pushed us to pursue entrepreneurship and start our real estate business. Before then, I didn't really know you could get into apartments. I had this misconception of multifamily and commercial real estate as you needing to have a lot of money and already have a lot of capital to deploy. But we realized that syndication was an option for us, and that's kind of how we decided to just pursue it and start exploring it. And so we got on biggerpockets.com looking for another mentorship because we're big believers in teachers and real teachers. And that's how we found a mastermind group that we ended up joining. And through that group, we've networked with a lot of people who are currently doing deals. And that's how we got into our first few deals as well.
Your first deal, how did that go?
Yeah, that was a deal in Jacksonville, Florida. Our markets, we really like high growth markets that I personally don't live too far from. So I live here in North Carolina. It's less than like an 8-hour drive to Florida. So if, I can always go there. And I also have partners that live very close by. So those are certain reasons why we chose that market. But my partner found the deal. He's in the mastermind group that we're talking about. So we pretty much helped out with some marketing aspects. And to tell you a little bit more about the asset itself, it was a C-class asset, 138 units. The current operators, they're also syndicators themselves, but they hadn't actually fully executed their entire business plan. They were about 2 years into it. And Jacksonville, Florida, it was absolutely booming at the time, and it still is. So they were able to raise a lot of the rents without actually having to do a lot of work to them. So they were able to actually achieve the returns that they were looking for a lot sooner. And it just made sense for them to sell early on. So that's kind of why they were motivated to sell. Not really motivated, but why they were open to it. And that's how we kind of got in touch with the owner. My partner was the one that actually submitted the LOI. He negotiated with the owners and eventually was able to get under contract. So that's kind of when we stepped in and we helped him in regards to some of the marketing aspects. We brought on some investors. And it was a 138 unit. That was the first deal we did. That's how we got into the first one.
How did you feel when you closed and you're part of that deal?
Yeah, I felt really good. I'll say there's always this intimidating factor before you do something, like especially something that seems like so hard to do. So when we got into multifamily, we were coming from a single family background. It seems like only like these, and we're pretty young too. So just being in this space where everyone's so much older than us, everyone's so much more experienced, it can be difficult to overcome those limiting beliefs. And it's almost like an impossible feat to accomplish. But eventually, once you do it, it's like, wow, I did it. And now you almost feel like you can do anything. It's like, if I can do that, and it seems so far away, not that long ago, now that I've accomplished it, what else can we do? So it kind of just motivated us to continue and to go after larger deals and to really just grow the portfolio.
Yeah, so limiting beliefs. So you mentioned you have a team, so you leveraged with a team, mentorship, so education is important to you. What could you say a little bit about raising money? I mean, you said you helped marketing and also helping, bring investors into the deal. How do the investors feel about your effort?
Yeah, so I would say some of like the main things, like obviously everyone that I was working with in regards to my investors, they knew that I was a young person. That I obviously haven't been on the planet for that long. So like, how could this person already be buying apartments? Well, that's where the team comes in. And that's why joining forces with other people that have a lot of experience have a proven track record, and have a great reputation really helped us. That's honestly, I can't credit them enough, because they were able to help me with anything that we needed. And also, I learned so much just by kind of working with them. But the investors obviously invested with a team, not just my brothers and I. They invested with my partners who have that track record. And I think anyone that's trying to do something that they haven't done, for us personally, we've always learned that if you surround yourself with the right people and you build a team of people that have already been there, have already been to the top and back, there's no reason to like recreate the wheel. You definitely just need to surround yourself with the right people, and you can do that whether by joining a mastermind group or just networking and going to networking events. So that's really how that ended up happening.
Yeah, that's true. And your second deal, what happened? I mean, you closed Jacksonville on the 38 unit, and then you actually just went into the second deal, or how did that work?
Yeah, so the second one we ended up closing in we did the last two deals last year very, very quickly. It was at Atlanta, Georgia deal. That one was it was larger. Similar concept. I met my partner through the group. I like the market. I don't actually live closer to Georgia than I do to Florida, and Atlanta is growing. It's a great market right now. That's why we were really excited about it once my partner found it. So similar concept. We helped with anything that we could. Really, for us, it's just being able to bring as much value to the team as possible, as well as knowing that our investors are going to be coming into a good deal that's something that we're very conservative with, and that we can make sure that we produce and execute the business plan. So a similar concept. It was a 330 unit asset. It was a C-class property in Atlanta, not too far from the airport. So yeah.
Regarding the market, how do you select the market? I mean, yeah, Atlanta is surely good and near to the airport, yeah. But what makes you feel like that the area is a great deal in the next 10 years?
For sure. So some things that we look for, obviously, like the southeast part of the United States, most markets here are experiencing high growth right now due to, like, after the pandemic hit, a lot of people were leaving the more
major metros.
Yeah, the major metros like New York, California. They were overpopulated, so people wanted to get into places where they could have more space and just, I guess, feel more safe, right? So they started traveling to places like North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, and that's exactly what we saw with the trends when it comes to the population. So we like to see a high population growth, or at least an increase in population growth. We like to look at the median household income, and that will let us know whether or not our tenant base will be able to support and actually pay the rent, right? Because our goal is to actually go into the assets and increase rents after doing the renovations, and that will overall increase the value. We like to see certain jobs in the area. So seeing like companies like where I'm living here in Durham, we have companies like Apple, Nike, Google making offices and buying up land here. And that's a really good thing to see in any market that we like to invest in, because it tells you that where jobs go, people go. And if the jobs, they believe in that market, then you can pretty much bet that there's going to be a lot more people coming here. And that's good for us, because that means that we'll have some type of demand for our units once we're looking to lease them.
Visit www.usmultifamilyrealestate.com to meet like-minded people with a focus on B and C class underperforming apartments in uptrending U.S. markets that can be repositioned toward the rapidly growing workforce. This is housing using a community lifestyle management approach.
So let's talk about investment strategy, or you mentioned it, the business plan. What are you actually uniquely trying to do? Why are you the one to do it, and what's in it for me as an investor to go on the ride with you guys?
Yeah, no, for sure. I would say in regards to, like, the first thing before anyone's looking to invest, I always tell anyone, like, you're going to want to make sure that you vet the sponsorship team. That's the biggest risk, is I think the people that you invest in. So just kind of not off topic, but make sure that you vet the sponsorship team, that they have a proven track record, that they have a good reputation. And then also, I would educate yourself a little bit on what you're investing in. So as you do that, maybe you can understand how the concept of the business plan works, what the goals are, and why we chose certain markets. But pretty much with our business plan, it's depending on the asset itself. We go in, Immediately, we're trying to do things that the residents will recognize and will be able to like see something is going on here. Like the new ownership that's taking over, they're making changes. So how do you do that? You do things on the exterior, maybe by improving the pavement, the parking spaces, maybe by repainting the exteriors on the buildings. You can reline the parking spaces. Sometimes they just obviously get old. The playgrounds on the outside. Certain things like that, like changing the signage on the outside of the property, will really catch the attention of new people coming in to look at new units. That's something that we immediately look to do in the first few months of us taking over. Eventually, the goal is to sometimes these properties obviously aren't as occupied as we like them to be. So on the vacant units, on one property, for example, we're looking at doing 5 renovations a month. And with that, we're looking to get premium rents on each. So the way apartment complexes work, as you raise the rents on each unit, the overall NOI of the property increases. And that's how you base how it's valued. So the more income that it produces, that's the value of it going up, which means that it will have higher returns. So the goal is always to try to get as much as we can from the asset. And you can obviously get it from rent. You can get it from pet fees. You can get it from different things like that. Like one of my properties, we have a gym. So you can have like a cool strategy where you can charge for the gym membership as well. So anything you can do to produce income. And some ways that we're conservative, I would say, that kind of, I can't compare myself to like other syndicators, but we typically look for no less than 10%, meaning that we're going to be, in regards to economic occupancy, that's just how much income you collect. So say you have 100 units with a 10% economic vacancy, you have 10 units not giving you any money. And with assuming you're not going to get 10% of the units collected, that's for us very conservative, because obviously we could get more than that, and we're not accounting for that in our underwriting.
How about the third deal? Where was that?
Yeah, Waco, Texas. Yeah, that one was 168 units. They're all very similar, like the group that I'm with and the types of deals that I like to do. BC class assets, where we see that the current ownership is underperforming, in our opinion, and we think we can go in there with an improved management company and systems and operations. We can increase the amount of income that we're actually going to collect. And it's not always like this one's a class B, but it's something that we were excited about.
Nice.
But it's really just something that, in regards to just going in there and trying to improve the overall environment for the residents, as well as certain units can obviously use work. So going in there, they're receiving a certain amount of rent per each unit. So we're going to go in there and see what we can do in regards to renovations, and then try to get more in rent. And that's pretty much the play that we go in most of our projects.
Have you met also and interviewed the tenants?
Typically we don't actually like meet every single tenant, right? That would just not really that wouldn't necessarily something that we would do. But we have property management companies, and we do walk each of the units as a team. And when you do that, yes, you might catch a tenant, and we don't typically try to like tell them what we're doing, right? Because it's something that can just cause some turmoil. So what we'll do is we'll kind of just go in there with a property management company as inspectors and try to learn more about the units, and that's something that we do throughout our due diligence process. So we don't actually like try to meet every tenant. I mean, talk to them and see what their experience is at the property, and they always have good insights. Yeah, but definitely something that we have some funny stories for sure.
But you're also providing value to the tenants, and you also provide value to the investors, and you provide value to the community, right?
100%. Like on the Atlanta deal, there's right now, when we took over, it wasn't that long ago, the playground is like very muddy. So and also the dog park is very muddy. So the current residents, when they try to walk their dog, they don't even want to use it, because like, what's the point of going out there when it rains? You're just going to get all dirty, So like, where do I walk my dog? Or for young children that live there, they have nowhere to really play. So they tend to play in the streets of the apartment complex, which is obviously it's a cause for concern for everyone, because people want to drive safely, and they want their kids to be able to play safely. So what we're doing is we're working on the playground, and we're also going to improve the dog park. And these are things that obviously are going to improve the life for everyone living there, and as well as the overall safety of it.
we have a danger zone at the moment in Europe, in Ukraine and Russia, and I think we see a little bit of roller coaster in volatility in the market. So I have a question here. Why do you think multifamily investments are the better deal than, for example, stock market?
Yeah, so actually, I was just reading a few articles the other day on this topic, and a lot of the stocks they're based on supply and demand, and they're very volatile in terms. The value of the stock isn't really set in anything, and so that's kind of why the value of multifamily is based on, like Jeffrey was touching on, the net operating income of the asset. So how much it can rent for, and how whether you decrease the expenses or increase the income. That's how you can manipulate the value of it, and so we have control. Whereas in a stock, if you're investing in a stock, you have no control. And a lot of financial experts right now are recommending people who, the stock market, it took a dip, and they're recommending people to leave their money there, because of course, if you sell at a low, then you're selling for a loss. Whereas, I don't know. I mean, I think that stock investing, it's an interesting investment, and this isn't financial advice, but with real estate, you can kind of you shouldn't expect your value of your asset to change overnight, and the factors that go into determining the value of it are more stable, and that's kind of why we love multifamily.
What could you say about passive income, build wealth, pay less taxes?
Well, for to build wealth, I mean, multifamily, it's everyone's always going to need a place to live. As long as we're on Earth and humans are on Earth, someone is going to need a place to live. So that's something that won't really change in terms of demand. And in terms of the taxes, a lot of the tax incentives, at least in America, and I'm sure in other nations around the world, they incentivize people to invest in housing because, like I said, that's something everyone needs. So governments incentivize citizens to invest in housing. And so a lot of times that's why the governments will give you tax breaks on that. And in terms of building passive income, as an investor in multifamily, you receive distributions, and that's money that you're not really necessarily earning from like your job. And so there are just different tax implications there, but it's not taxed the same way your active income is. And I believe that your active income, which is what you get from your job, is taxed more heavily than your passive income. Yeah, and the tax benefit is in multifamily specifically is known as depreciation. And that's when the asset loses value over time, just in like a generic definition. And you're in exchange going to be able to write that off on your tax, as long as you can qualify as a professional real estate investor or as a real estate profession. And that's something that you'd have to talk to your CPA about. But these are just different tax benefits and reasons why we like investing in hard assets like real estate and specifically multifamily.
Well, let's say you have a passive investor, a so-called limited partner on board, which who is, for example, working in a hospital, so could be a nurse, for example, and she provides you the money and or puts it in her own LLC that she would create for investing in passively in your deals, for example. She could also offset the losses that you probably have in the first few years. Can she also offset those losses on her W-2 income from her job as a nurse?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it depends on the deal, and I think everyone's financial situation is different. Like, I know of a nurse who, I believe my brother met a woman on the plane the other day, and she's taxed like 40% of her income. And so when you have investments in things like real estate, you can offset the taxes that you're paying on your active income because of those depreciation benefits of being involved in a multifamily investment, for example. And so there's a lot of ways to kind of the money that you're paying in this form of taxes, you're able to decrease that liability, I suppose. And in regards to like a lot of love him or hate him, Donald Trump was obviously like a really wealthy individual, yet he paid little money in taxes. How does he do that? That's through real estate, because through his depreciation, on paper he's taking a loss on his buildings, but obviously he's making money on it, right? But on paper you're losing, and that's how you're able to write it off. Now, obviously you want to talk to your CPA about it, but that's really why it's so powerful. Yeah, and so like I'm not an expert on REITs, but I know a big difference between REITs and a multifamily syndication, and being a passive investor in a multifamily syndication is that you are the owner, a part owner of that property, and therefore you can take the tax benefits of that property. And so I think that's a big benefit of just being the owner. And I know for an investor like Donald Trump, for example, he's on the active side, so he's kind of working on the team and managing the assets, but passive investors receive practically the same benefits as the active investors do.
Yeah, it brings me to that book, Cash Flow Quadrant, where he's saying, so if you are actually in a syndication, you are on the right side of the quadrant, right? So that's the thing you mentioned. Hey, guys, that's great information. And can you tell us a little bit about also your content? I think you also produce some help to investors, like you have a podcast, you have a website, I think you have even a newsletter. Where can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, so we have a website. It's www.donisinvestmentgroup.com. That's DONIS investmentgroup.com. On our website, you can receive the 5 mistakes passive investors make. It's like a playbook we wrote. We also have a podcast. It's the Realestate Monopoly podcast, where we interview multifamily syndicators. And we also have a YouTube channel that we're going to start uploading episodes on more. It's just Donis Brothers, and we're also at Donis Brothers on every social media platform.
Hey guys, that was great information. It was a pleasure having you here on the show. Thanks a lot. Unfortunately, we were not able to talk with Kenneth, right? So say hello to him, and yes, maybe he will be next time on the show. So I hope I see you once, probably when I fly to the US. Probably we can meet us also in Texas, as you're sometimes also there in Waco, as you mentioned. Awesome. Thanks a lot. Yeah, and take care.
Thank you, likewise. Take care. Thank you, Marcel.
Danke, dass du reingeschaut hast bei Stars and Stripes, deine US-Immobilien-Show. Melde dich an für diesen Podcast, hinterlasse eine Review und vernetze dich mit Marcel auf deiner Lieblings-Social-Media-Plattform.